Hello and welcome to this Edexcel GCSE Geography exam skills video. This one is looking at command words and key terms and is part 5 in the series, looking at the level marked, assess and evaluate questions, and in particular we're looking at the type of questions you're going to find in paper 2. Please have a look at the other videos in the series that will help you gain a better understanding of the command words and the type of things you'll be expected in the exam. So here are the command words in total. We can see we have the simpler knowledge type questions here. We have the more detailed explanations and reasoning showing understanding. And then here we have the more detailed application. So examine are the ones we find in rivers and coasts. And then we'll be looking at the assess and evaluate questions that we'll see particularly in paper 2. If you want to look at paper 1, have a look at part 4 in this series. Seen this before, this is the specification, just showing you how many marks each question could be worth in the exam, and assess and evaluate are worth 8 marks. Now remember, for each paper there is no higher or foundation tier in geography, so the questions are differentiated. Often the easier knowledge-based questions are at the start of each sort of section, and they will get gradually more difficult with the application questions at the end of each topic section. Remember to have your knowledge, your key terms is worth about 1/3. It will get you up to about a grade 3 if you get all of those right. The understanding questions is worth another 1/3 of the marks, and this will move you up to the grade 5s and 6s. But the application questions, if you're looking for the grades 7 to 9, then you need to get these right and also put in a good performance here. But remember that 10% of the marks are generally based on maths-based questions, so you must know your basic mathematical skills, and another 10% of them are based on geographical map skills. Now remember, these maths and geographical skills will be embedded into the knowledge and understanding questions. And then remember that 40% of the marks roughly come from resources, from graphs, from pictures, from maps, from diagrams. So you've got the information given to you, it's just about how you interpret those. So don't forget to practice those skills as well. So the assess and evaluate questions we've talked about in part 4. The ones found in weather and climate and ecosystems, and this session we're looking at those you'll find in changing cities, global development and energy resources. Now these are always worth 8 marks, but remember there is an extra 4 marks available in the ecosystems and energy resources. So use punctuation correctly, shouldn't need to tell you that, and capital letters for proper nouns, particularly for your case studies and your place names. Use a good structure using clear paragraphs. I would always advise leaving 2 lines between each paragraph to show that you've got structure, but it also allows you space if you think of anything to add to your question later on. And as always, we do so much work on key terms testing, so make sure you're using them in your answer because the marks are available for that as well. So just to recap, what does assess mean? Well, effectively, it's using relevant information from case studies and from your knowledge to show an understanding of the key factors which cause something to happen. You've got to state which are the most important and which are the most relevant, but you can also explain factors which may reduce their impact as well, and that's the higher order skill there. When we look at evaluate, we're looking at the measure, the value or success of something. How important are certain factors, or how successful have actions been? Again, you need the case study evidence in there, but it's important with evaluate that you remember you must have a detailed conclusion at the end. For assess, you want to have judgments throughout your answer. You want judgments throughout and evaluate, but you also need a clear conclusion at the end as well. It's very important. So, some ideas for a possible structure. For the assess and evaluate, they're very, very similar. An introduction, rewording the question and defining the key terms or the focus and restriction of the question, just to show that you've got knowledge for assessment objective 1. Then it's your choice of points for the paragraphs that will show your understanding and linking. Make an explicit judgment, a key factor, an important, a major part. Then give some evidence with an explanation to link it back to the question. Why is it important? What evidence is there? Then possibly, depending on the question, you might want to counterpoint to say it's important, but this is more important, or this is also important, or this isn't as important as this. And then if possible, just give a sentence at the end just to link it back and to summarize again. So this shows, therefore this is important because, just quickly. Then you need paragraph 2 with the same but different factors in there. And for assess, you don't need a conclusion, but it's good practice just to put one in. For evaluate, it's the same, but just a much more detailed conclusion. When we look here, this might give you some ideas on the connectives and sentence starters you can use to help structure your answer. Not saying that this is the best way of doing it, but it is a way to begin just to help you when you get in there. Okay, so particularly if you're feeling less confident, try and think of this structure to help you. So, we've looked at the mark schemes in more detail earlier. Now on part 4. So what we're going to do now is go straight into some of the questions. Now, as we did in part 4, I have a number of different past exam questions for you. What I would like you to do is to have a look. Which of these are the command words? Which of these would relate to the topic? Which of these in each question relate to the focus? And what do you think the restriction could be? So have a go at that. So how did you get on with that? Well, you'll see that some of these aren't quite as easy as the ones for paper 1 because of the wording of the question. But you can see the command words are easily highlighted. But remember, when you're looking at the command of the question, it's not just necessarily the command word itself, but the words that follow it as well. So assess the impacts. Assess which of these cities have been most successful. So the command words and the focuses can sometimes overlap. Sometimes it can oversimplify it to say you can split them up into these areas. Okay, and sometimes you can miss the meaning of the question by breaking it down and not reading it in its entirety. But again, as we did before, can we think about other ways of maybe changing these questions around? For example, if we look at this one, evaluate how the government has improved quality of life, it might be evaluate how communities has improved quality of life. So think about how you can adapt these different questions. That way you're going to be more able to cope with the different challenges that come up in the different exam questions. If we have a look at comparing different questions then, as we did in part 4, here we have 2 different questions. What are the similarities and what are the differences? So, pause the video, write down what you think the similarities are, what you think the differences are. Have a go at that now. So how did you do? Well, we can see then, for the similarities, they are both assess the effects or impacts. So you've got to say for each of these, which are the most important effects or impacts. And obviously for both of these, you've got to use case study information. And both of them are looking at a developing or emerging country. However, although they look quite similar, the devil is in the detail. Question 1 is about rapid urbanization. You're looking at your Mexico City case study here. Whereas question 2 is about rapid development. So this would be related to India. Again, another difference. 1 is about a city, whereas 2 is about a country. So although some of the information that you might give might be similar, it's very important that you do reflect it and put it into the restriction. And you have shown that you've read that question very carefully there. We've looked at some of the questions you might find in detail, so we'll just have a quick go over the mark scheme. If you look at the mark scheme from the specification and in the examiner mark schemes, you can see they're quite difficult to interpret and understand. But basically, a level 1 is you've got some correct information, but it's very brief and it's not necessarily linked to the question in that much detail. It may be that you've got some errors there are some correct bits, but it's not really showing a great detail and understanding, and you failed to make any judgments and there's no evidence in there whatsoever. But you could still get up to 3 marks, and if you've done well in all of the other questions and you get the 3 marks for each of these assess and evaluate questions, then that will still get you on track for a good grade 7, providing you've got all of the other work done. Now, if you're looking for the 8s and 9s, then we've got to be making sure we're at the top end of level 2, as well as getting all of the knowledge and understanding questions as well. Now, this is basically where you have got a pretty sound understanding. You've linked the information together, but maybe you've missed out the judgments or you've missed out any detailed evidence. If you're going for the 7 and 8s, then this would be, if you've got all the other knowledge and understanding questions right, this is going to get you that definite grade 9 if you've got everything else right. And this is where you've picked the most relevant information. You've been concise, you've made judgments throughout, like in the structure that I gave you earlier in this video. So if you've done all of that and you've got evidence and you've made clear judgments throughout and with a conclusion for the evaluate, then that's going to get you to this level 3. But as I say, even working towards this high level 2, if you've got your knowledge and understanding in the other ones, that's still going to give you the ability to get to the 8s and 9s. Remember, a grade 9, the grade boundaries are set around 80%. So you're not having to get everything spot on. Focus on getting all of the state, define, identify, all of the maths and map questions correct, making sure that you're understanding the explained questions and the mark schemes for those. So you are making sure you're getting 3 or 4 marks out of all of those. And then this level 2 at the higher end will ensure you're still able to get the grade 9. You're not looking for perfection. You're not looking to get every bit of information that you know in there. It's about selecting the key bits of information. And if we look at level 3 in more detail and we start to look at breaking down what it means, we can see that you've got to select the correct information, the most relevant information, using the key terms, the locations, and the right processes which are relevant. You're showing that you've linked this information to answer the question directly and that you've made judgments on it. You are saying most important, most effective, more effective in developed or less developed. You've got to be using that kind of terminology. And again, remembering that you're using this case study information. You don't need to put lots of facts and figures. They're not looking for you just to recreate a case study. It's 1 or 2 bits of key information that backs up your judgment. And that is key. So it doesn't need to be littered with facts and figures. Just using key examples that back up the main points. So, I hope you found this video useful. Please feel free to watch this as many times as you need to help develop your understanding, but also have a look at breaking down the questions and keep referring to the other videos in this series. I hope you found it useful. Thanks very much for watching. Hopefully see you again soon. Take care. Bye.